Jeremiah chapter 12. Let's read at verse 1. All right, Jeremiah chapter 12, verse 1 through 5. Righteous are you, O Lord, when I plead with you, yet let me talk with you about your judgments. Why does the way of the wicked prosper? Why are those happy who deal so treacherously? You have planted them, yes, and have taken rod. They grow, yes, they bear fruit. You are near in their mouth, but far from their mind. But you, O Lord, know me. You have seen me. You have tested my heart toward you. Pull them out like sheep for the slaughter, and prepare them for the day of slaughter. Verse 3 is, I don't know why that is so comical to me, but I'll explain it in a second. Verse 4, how long will the land mourn and the herbs of every field wither? The beasts and birds are consumed for the wickedness of those who dwell there, because they said, he will not see our final end. Verse 5 is our main verse. If you have run with the footmen, they have wearied you, then how can you contend with horses? And if in the land of peace in which you trusted, they wearied you, then how will you do in the floodplain of the Jordan? Okay, again, I want to talk to you from prepare to run. Prepare to run. Prepare to run. All right. Here we have the prophet Jeremiah. The prophet Jeremiah is probably, let's see, in my Old Testament prophets, where does Jeremiah rank? All right. Number one, I don't know. I go back and forth with that. I'm a big fan of Elijah. I'm a big fan of Elisha. I'm also a big fan of Samuel. Well, he ranks up there with one of your top, prophets. So Jeremiah, I like him. He's entitled like the weeping prophet. That's what they, entitle him. Jeremiah has an interesting call or commission that Jeremiah gets, all right? Jeremiah, ladies and gentlemen, has been given the great assignment to pretty much, in a time where as though he was a prophet in the time of Josiah's day. Josiah brings great, this is King Josiah, by the way. Josiah brings a revival to Judah, okay? But towards the end, Josiah and the people of God, more so the people of God begin to turn. Josiah didn't listen to the right instructions by not attacking this particular army, and what begins to happen is that Josiah is stricken dead. All right. So then the people turn from worshiping God, and then they go back to worshiping their idols. So there is a lot of idolatry going on in the land, and Judah and Jerusalem at this time. And so King Josiah, King Josiah is done, and so Jeremiah has this call from God in Jeremiah chapter 1. He's called as a young man, and Jeremiah is like, I don't really want to do all of this. God, how am I going to do this? I'm a young man. And so God begins to give him a word, say, I'm going to put the words in your mouth, and you're going to go from there. And so Jeremiah is crying out to the people for repentance. Yeah. So Jeremiah has an interesting assignment that God really calls him to call the people into repentance, to tell them to turn from their wickedness and to turn from their idolatry. And guess what? Jeremiah is told to do this, and not knowing that the end result that these people will never do what he's trying to tell them to do. Yeah. That's a real hard assignment. Yeah. That Jeremiah is literally called to tell the people to turn, repent, come out of your idolatry. And so here we find him in Jeremiah chapter 12, which is pretty much a continuation of what's going on in Jeremiah chapter 11. In Jeremiah chapter 11, what happens at the very end, ladies and gentlemen, is that, the people with this message that Jeremiah is bringing them, telling them that they're in the wrong. Jeremiah is being hated. Yeah. He's not only being hated by his own hometown in Anathoth, but he's being hated by his own family. Yeah. His own family's like, man, we don't like you. Yeah. We want to kill you. Like, why are you saying all of this? His own family. And he's like, oh my God, I cannot believe this. You thought he was weeping before. He's definitely weeping now. Right. And so just like many of us, Jeremiah is distressed. He has now grown weary with the assignment that he has been given, right? And so he's grown weary, and now he's became impatient. Right. And so he's gotten to the point now, ladies and gentlemen, he's gotten to the point now that he's now asking God the whys of life. Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever been there? We call this the whys of life. The why. The why. And so let's look at this here. The whys of life. Why does the way of the wicked prosper? Why are those people who deal so treacherously happy? You know what I mean? Why am I being tested like this? These are what I like to call the whys of life. Everybody has asked these has given these wise statements at one point in time in their life. Yeah. It seems like to Jeremiah that the wicked is prospering. Yeah. Yeah. It seems like to Jeremiah that these people who do not have even a slightest even reverence for God, Jeremiah says they are far from his mind. They are far from them. They're like these people don't even got God on their mind, and it seems like they are so happy. Yeah. It seems like they have so much joy. Why is it that they are seeming to prosper? Have you ever been there? Yeah. I'm like, look, wait a second. Jeremiah's like, look, I agreed to do the will of God. I agreed to come into covenant with this. I agreed to what you are calling me to do, Lord. And it seems as though that I am suffering while the people who are wicked are flourishing. Yeah. Come on. What sense does it make? It seems like they're flourishing and yet I'm suffering. How is it that the righteous is suffering, but it seems like the wicked is flourishing? That does not make any type of sense. Right. You got to explain this thing to me. Yeah. So what Jeremiah does is he first acknowledges the righteousness of God in verse 1. He said, God, I know you're righteous. I know you are. You're just. That makes sense. The problem I'm having is, since you're so righteous, why is it that it seems to me that the wicked are prospering? Yeah. I mean, look, I'm looking at Facebook. I'm looking at Instagram. I know these fools who I done gone to school with don't have a slightest, you know what I mean? I know they don't have no lick of appreciation for God. Yeah. They don't even care. It just seems like they get married. Seems like everything's so cool. And then this is where I had to drop, because I said that very thing to myself. I was like, Jeremiah, like God, why is it seems like everybody else prospering, I'm suffering here. I'm trying to grow this thing, and it just seems like I'm just coming up against a whole lot of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, why is it? And then the Lord began to say to me about answering that question is, if everybody thought the way of God was easy, then everybody would be on that side. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow. That's good. Everybody would be on that side. I mean, really, there are pleasures in the world. Yeah. It is pleasurable. It looks that way. It is the world. The world has this temptation, and it can be real. It can tempt you into the pleasures, but what the world doesn't show you is those are but for a moment. They don't last. Right. That's why you have to keep going back to the same party over and over again, because you're trying to chase the one that you were at before. Because guess what? There's no satisfaction with it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there is pleasures in the world. Yes, there are. But if the road of being a Christian was easy, then everybody would be on this side. Then why would Jesus say that that the road is narrow and the gate is narrow? But the way of the world, but there's another way that their way is broad and the gate is also wide. Why would he say that? Yeah. Because if it was easy, everybody would be on that side. On Christ's side. But here's the deal. Jeremiah is saying, look, these people are wicked. Yeah. You're righteous. How are they getting blessed? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then everybody's saying, why are those people so happy? They just look happy. Look at them on Instagram and their filters and their little stuff like that. They look all happy and stuff like that with their little six packs and working out at the gym. And I'm just trying to build myself up. These people look all happy. What you happy for? You know what I mean? You be starting to have a conversation with yourself. Like, why are these folk happy? They shouldn't be happy. They should be sad. They should be miserable. And if you're not careful, you start to turn and sound like a hater. If you're not careful, you will start sounding like a hater. Because here's the thing, and this is what social media has done. Social media has really, social media really has made it so that people with esteem issues and looking at social media is not good.
That's right.
Because what it's done is it has increased this false narrative.
Yeah.
That people think that this false narrative of showing a highlight reel of everything that's good in one's life, but with doing that, now you've been sucked into this place of living in a false world that you've created when that world is different from the one that you are currently experiencing.
Yeah, that's so true.
And so that's what social media has done. And if you're not careful, you'll be like Jeremiah. Why in the world am I looking at them on Snapchat, Facebook, all this crazy stuff, and it seems like they just having the time of their life? And actually, to be real and honest, is that they're probably not. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Most people who are posting stuff on there, let me tell you something, they're more miserable than what they are happy.
Yeah.
That's not everybody. But here's the question I want to deal with. Why am I being tested like this? Yeah. Why is verse 3 so funny to me in Jeremiah? He was like, look, I'm getting tired of this. I'm waiting. Look, I'm growing impatient. I need to see you start pulling them out like the slaughter. Kill them! That's what Jeremiah is saying. He said this, but you, O Lord, you know me. You've seen me, brother. I've been out here. I've been worshiping. I've been preaching every Sunday. I've been going hard, man, every week. Every week. I've been sowing my tithe. I've been a good Christian, man. A good one. He was like, this is what I need you to do. You have tested my heart, right? Yeah. You tested my heart. Now, this is what I want you to do. Pull them out like sheep for the slaughter. Yeah. I'm ready to see this judgment. Right. Jeremiah grew so impatient. That's why he's one of my favorite prophets. He grew so impatient. He's like, you know what, man, forget this. Pull them out like the sheep and slaughter them. I mean slaughter them. I'm tired of this. I'm ready for the righteous to start taking winning. I'm ready to be on there and say winning. I'm tired of taking these L's. I want to be winning. They look like they're winning. That's what it looks like. That's what it appears to be. But you have to understand this, is that the wicked only prospers but yet for a season. That's right. They only prosper yet for a season. Yeah. And so we get caught up in the highlight reel of their life. We get caught up of what's happening in their season, but not understanding that there's a longevity that God is trying to get us to. There's a longevity that God is trying to build. What he's trying to establish for us will outlive anything that the wicked thinks that they have. So he says, man, pull them out like the sheep and slaughter them. We need to start seeing them take some L's. That's what Jeremiah is saying. But here's the question. He said, you have tested me. That is the question that I want to deal with now. Why am I being tested like this? There is a purpose for testing. All right, the purpose of testing, it serves a purpose. All right, it serves a purpose. It serves a purpose. Here it is. The test that God puts us through is the evidence of his love toward us. This is very important that you have to understand. The test that God puts us through is the evidence of his love toward us. It's evidence. If you are not going under a test, that means chances are you are probably not one of the child of God. How do I know this? Hebrews says it like this. Hebrews 12 verse 6, New Living Translation. For the Lord disciplines those he loves, and he punishes each one he accepts as his child. So, ladies and gentlemen, there's other versions. New King James Version would say, chastises. All of this has everything to do with testing, putting in correction, putting under discipline. And this is what God is saying. He is testing you. He who he loves, he's testing you. And they serve as a reason. Number one, the reason why God sends test our way as an evidence of his love toward us is because it's trying to test your faith. Yeah. He must test the genuineness of your faith. All right? The genuineness of your faith. The Bible says in 1 Peter chapter 1 verse 7, these trials will show that your faith is genuine. I'll stop there. These trials that you go through in your life is the proof of how genuine your faith is. Yeah. You will come to the reality where your faith is based upon the trial you go through.
Yeah. Say that again.
All right, you will know where your faith is based upon the trial you go through. It is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold. This is what Peter is saying. And Peter would be one who could say this because Peter's faith was tested. Right. Because we realize that Peter lost when Peter said, no, Jesus, I'm not going to betray you. I would never do that, Jesus. I would never do that. I would never say that you deny you 3 times. I would never. And Jesus says, Jesus told Peter, that sounds nice, brother. But look, you're going to deny me 3 times regardless. I know, I'm all knowing. I know what's going to happen. So Peter did exactly that. Peter ran off. Went back to the fisherman. Went back to feed a fisherman. Jesus came and found him and said, like, Peter, do you love me? Yes. It's like, then go and feed my sheep, man. What you doing back? So, again, he said, I'm testing your faith just like gold is tested, okay? So when your faith remains strong through many trials, it will bring you much praise and glory and honor on the day when Jesus Christ is revealed to the whole world. So when your faith goes through the period of testing here, it says it's going to be revealed. Guess what? At the very end, your faith, hallelujah, for you having faith in God and trust in Jesus, on that day that Jesus comes back, he said, there is going to be your reward. Wow. There will be your reward. Okay, let me give you another one. I want to go through to build your perseverance. James 1 verse 3 says, for you know that your faith is tested. Your endurance has a chance to grow. So your testing of our faith is meant to build your endurance in order for you to grow. All right, so the reason why he does this, the reason why God tests you, not only to test your faith, but also to build your perseverance. Yeah. Not only is he trying to build your perseverance, but he's trying to grow, also number 3, grow your character. Tests are God's way of revealing what is inside of us so that he can change whatever is not like Christ. Yeah. You have to understand that God has a bigger plan concerning your life. That plan is to shape you and mold you into like his son. If you have not done, see, here's the deal. Here's why I've tested you, Jeremiah, because you have to be a person who is proven. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's true. God puts, oh my God, to some of the most greatest anointed men has been put through vigorous trials and testing in order that their character may be able to grow, in order for God to see if they can be tested. And I mean, if they can be trusted. Yeah. How do I know this? Job has gone through so much vigor. Oh my God, the vigorous testing that he went through. And at the very end, you can see that Job could be trusted. How could he be trusted? Because he never cursed God's name. Mm-hmm. That's it. Joseph went through so much vigorous trials. He went through so much trials and testing. Joseph, why? Because in the very beginning, he started off, his character, at the end of the day, Joseph, he was kind of arrogant. He had every right to be. But that's not where God wanted him to be at.
Yeah.
So, he takes him through a process. He has a dream. The dream did not happen right away. Takes him through a whole journey just to finally see the dream come to pass. Why? So that his character could be able to keep him in the position that he was going to. How do I know this? David was anointed as king. As a shepherd boy. Anointed as king. Yet Saul was still on the throne. Saul was still on the throne. That means even David went through the testing of having Saul try to kill him. The true test that David had to be able to overcome is that while a person still sits at the throne, when you still have respect for that person.
Yeah.
Wow. David was so mad because when Saul's servant, Saul asked his servant to kill him, and Saul was like, "Why?" And David was like, "Why would you do that?" Because David had to overcome that test. David had multiple times where he could have killed Saul. He could have.
Yeah.
But he respected the timing of God.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because he had to be proven that he could be trusted.
Yeah.
You are being tried in order that you can be, in order that you can be trusted with favor. Because when God gives you favor, you can lose favor in a moment if your character cannot keep you in it. You can lose it. So the Lord responds to Jeremiah in verse 5, right? He responds to him in verse 5, and he really doesn't really answer his question. He just gives him another way of looking at it. I found myself throughout this year of our church anniversary asking God so many questions that I feel as though I have never gotten the answers to. In my personal life, I've also asked God so many questions that I feel as though that I have not gotten complete answers for. He just gave me another way of looking at it. This is what he did, Jeremiah. All right, I hear you. You're getting impatient. I feel you. But why don't you think about this? If you are getting wearied with the footmen, if the footmen are wearying you, if the footman has wearied you, as he says, how do you expect to run with the horsemen? If the footmen have wearied you, how do you expect to run with the horsemen? I think this is a very important question because a very important statement and profound statement that Jesus is making. That God is making. And I felt the same way when I read this. It's like, Brandon, if you think that this is, what God is saying, this is minor compared to what you're about to deal with, Jeremiah.
Yeah.
This is minor. This is minor. What he's saying in essence is this. It's like, look, man, I know what your people have done to you in your hometown. But that's nothing compared to when you have to go in front of the priests, the wicked priests and the rulers of Jerusalem. That's even a bigger challenge for you. Oh my God, and I begin to hear God speak so clearly through these verses. It's like, Brandon, if you think that trying to get people in here that's minor compared to what you're going to have to deal with once they're here. Everything that you are going through right now is minor. I'm like, it don't feel minor though. Like you just ain't going to diminish what I've gone through. Like, have you ever had that with God? Like, hey, look here, man, you ain't just going to diminish what I'm going through. Like, how are you going to tell me what I'm going through is minor? But in essence, because God does not think God is not short-sighted.
Right.
Yeah.
You only think it's minor. You only think it's a major problem because you are short-sighted. God sees your very beginning from your end.
Yeah, yeah.
And so since he sees the beginning to the end, since he's the author and finisher of your faith, he knows the bigger challenges that are on the road for your life. There's a bigger issue. There's a bigger thing coming up the side of the road, and that's what God knows. So that's why he sends the footmen.
Yeah. Wow.
Footmen in military terms, ladies and gentlemen, footmen was the first level of defense. All right? Footmen was the first level of defense before the cavalry came. In other words, cavalry is the horses. Coming on the horses. The footmen came, they had arrows. They were the first line of defense. After they would go first, if their men was losing badly, then that's when you saw the horses come. That's when you saw the whole cavalry. Oh my God, we're going to lose. Let me send the cavalry. So the footmen is the first level of, why does God send the footmen? Training, training, training. Everything at this moment has been training, training, training. All right, everything. Everything to build this up, it has been training, training, and more training. Right now, the staff at TCF is under training, 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 and even more training. Why is that? Because God is training us how to trust him.
Yeah.
God sends the footmen. These are what we call the minor problems in our lives in order to be able to build up our trust, to show us, to train us to trust him. How do I know this? Elijah in 1 Kings chapter 17, he was told after he said that there will be no rain in the land, God directs him to a brook.
Yeah.
Why is he directing him to a brook? Why is he showing him that? Why is he leading him there? Because he's about to show Elijah that God can be trusted. Yeah. Not only is God seeing that if you can be trusted, but he's also showing you that I can be trusted. Yeah. And so how can I be trusted, Elijah? I can be trusted because I'm going to provide a raven to come and provide you at that brook.
Yeah.
You have to understand that even in your minorest problems, that God is right there training you how to trust him in it. Number two, what is the purpose of the footman? Training you to draw strength from him. You have to understand how to draw strength from God in the most and where you are going through. I shall look up to the hills which cometh my help. That's how I know I can draw strength in my moment of weakness. We have to learn that the footmen, if you are getting weary with the footmen, God is not going to elevate you to another level to deal with horsemen if you have not mastered the footmen.
Yeah,
that's right.
In this season, it is not until we master the footmen that we can be able to deal with the horsemen. And we are almost at the level that I believe that God is about to elevate us to deal with the bigger problems that are coming here. There's people who are going to be coming, listen to me, there's people who are going to be coming, they're going to be dealing with major stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, let's look at the bigger picture. If you are wearied now, if we are wearied because of what we see now, how are we going to be able to deal with when we see See, let me tell you something. Numbers don't always mean, that means more people you have to manage.
Yeah.
So there's going to be times where we were feeling weak. We need to find out how to draw strength from him.
Yeah.
Come on, somebody.
Yeah.
We need to figure out how to draw strength. And so if you can't master how to draw strength in this place of elevation, how is it that you're going to be able to do that when you start dealing with the bigger stuff that is to come? Like, I think of it like in a relationship sometimes. Like, if you are in a relationship with a significant other, the best way I think of it, if you can't deal with the minor problems that y'all got now, how is it going to be when you get married dealing with those problems? But if you can't draw strength from God in the minor, then that's going to be a problem, because now when you're married, then you have a bigger problem here because you didn't say vows in front of God. Come on, somebody. And so if you can't deal with it on this level, how can you deal with it on that level? See, you've been called to run with the horsemen, but God is smart. He's strategic. God is just not going to put you in, he's just not going to put you with the horsemen knowing that you would get, Knowing that you would get messed up quickly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put you, and you're going to experience these footmen. Some people that you're dealing with in your life right now, they are footmen. These people, like their spirits that they're dealing with, excuse me, more so, the spirits of the people that you're dealing with are the spirits of footmen.
Yeah.
They're the first level of defense to get you oh my God, to keep you from having the Calvary Cup. Because because when you get to that point, God has elevated you to a place where as though I think you can be trusted to run with the horsemen.
Yeah.
Let's go to number 3. Training on how to fight. It is in the stage of a footman where God teaches your hands how to war. He is strengthening your legs, strengthening your legs, your feet for battle. It's learning there. There's a Psalms right here. He's strengthening you. Psalm 18, verse 32 through 34. God arms me with strength and he makes my way perfect. He makes me as sure-footed as a deer, enabling me to stand on mountain heights. He trains my hands for battle. He strengthens my arms to draw a bronze bow. So this is what God is doing for you in the footman stage. In the footman stage, this is what God is doing. He's strengthening your arms to be able to shoot that bow out, to attack your first level of defense. He's strengthening, and you're about to be shooting. God is strengthening your arms to shoot out your weaponry.
Yeah.
Strengthening your arms, strengthening your hands, making your feet, like he said, making your feet as sure-footed as deer. And that kind of threw me off because I was like, deer? One of the dumbest animals I know. But if you look at a deer and if you look at them, they are sure-footed. If you look at a deer, he said, I am making you, he said, I make you as sure-footed as a deer. A deer is sure-footed. I just saw one yesterday because they're around the house. And I saw them. And I was like, that is true. They are short. They're sure-footed. Like, once they plant. And so that's what I'm looking at. He's like, I make you as sure. He said, because once you master this, I'm preparing you to run. Let me tell you something. When a person prepares for a marathon, how they prepare is to begin, they prepare in intervals. How do I know this? Because I did research on the website. And so when a person is preparing to run, they do it in intervals, especially if it's a marathon. So they'll tell you to run as long as this one day, probably run 7 miles one day and then expand it. Because they're trying to build up your endurance to be able to last in the marathon. And so you take it in intervals. And once you've mastered that, then you expand it from, if you master 7 miles, then expand it to 10. Do 10 for a while and then expand to that. And then you take your rest. When you get fatigued, build your body back up. This all happens in the level of a footman. When you are dealing with footmen, it's annoying because footmen, it wasn't just one footman you were dealing with. When footmen came, they came in stand with me, Brittany, when they came, imagine this. It's multiple ones of us. So they stood together like this, grouped together, and they had bows and stuff like that with their arrows. And so just imagine a long fleet of them, and then you have one. After you deal with this level, there's another set of footmen after you. Armed! You know what I mean? When they do that, oh man, I thought I'm done. I thought I done killed them. No, I got another fleet of them.
Yeah.
Because they travel in packs.
Yeah.
They don't travel alone. So you're trying to figure out why, thank you, Brittany, you're trying to figure out why you're getting tested with I just thought I overcame that. Why am I dealing with this? You want to know why? Because they travel in packs.
Yeah.
So once you get rid of them, you got another set that you got to deal with. And another set you have to deal with, because what is that doing? Preparing you for the footman. Look at somebody and say, prepare to run. All right, give God a praise.